Welcome back to my channel, sports fans. Okay, let's get into this one right here. Well, folks, let's kind of go over this again. LeBron James, 39, 40 years old versus Michael Jordan, 39, 40 years old. And, you know, we kind of talked about the competition, the level of competition that Michael Jordan was facing and why he didn't make an All-NBA team. And that's really not important that Michael Jordan didn't make an All-NBA team in his third season, well, not his third season, in his last season, because he wasn't going to play again. He already announced at the beginning of the year it was going to be his last year, so he wasn't thriving even to make an All-NBA that season. But he did make an All-Star appearance, which was good enough. He was one of the best players in the East, but he wasn't a top 15 player in the league. And what it means is, it doesn't mean he wasn't good enough or he wasn't that good. It was just that the league was that deep. It wasn't a pity party because he was Michael Jordan, right? But let's look at this. This is a 2003 All-NBA versus the 2025 All-NBA, right? So the 2002, 2003 season versus the 24-25 season. So again, let's look at this. And why we want to go over this again, because it's going to be something that's very important to detail how bad LeBron James' competition is in his era. I mean, we know it with the ratings, and any NBA fan really knows this in general. But the more we hear on these stupid podcasts about how good these guys are in his era and how good, you know, LeBron James is, that he made an All-NBA second team. And hell, we might go over who was on the, we can do a video again. Last year, when LeBron James made All-NBA third team, we'll see in Michael Jordan's comeback season with the Wizards who was on the All-NBAs. Now, I'm not, and who was on the All-NBA last year. I'm not interested in a third team. I'm just not, man. That's just too much of a. I can't do it, especially in this era. I really don't care. And I'm not trying to say in Michael Jordan's era there weren't good 13 players, because there probably were. But it really don't mean nothing to me. The top 10 players, and really, what means the most to me is the top 5 players. I just threw in the second team just to see, you know, really what the spice really is. But top 15, I'm not trying to discredit them, but I just want to really see the top 5 players in the league at the time. And like I said, I'm willing to go to the top 10. So let's look at it. In 25, All-NBA first team was Giannis. Good for him. Great. All-time great player. And we're not on here to say these guys aren't all-time great players. We're not here to say that. But there's levels to it. There's levels to it, right? So Giannis, okay, let's remember, they don't have forward, center, guard in this new era in the All-NBAs. But we kind of have a little understanding of what position these guys play. And the reason why they stopped doing it All-NBA positional is so LeBron James could run amok, and a lot of these guys will be able to get on these All-NBA teams because it's positionless. I mean, it's a positionless NBA now if you think about it. So yeah, on the first team you got Giannis, SGA, Joker, Donovan Mitchell, and Jason Tatum. Wow, that's pretty good, folks. It's good. That's great. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not. So, on the first team in 2003, Michael Jordan's last season, you had Tim Duncan at forward. You had Kevin Garnett at forward. You had Shaq at center. You had Kobe Bryant at guard and Tracy McGrady at guard. Lord have mercy. And what you guys got to remember about this, when we look at Giannis, SGA, I think Giannis is like 10, 11 years in. SGA is 7 going on 8. Joker, I think he's 10. Donovan Mitchell, he's been there for a minute. I would guess he's around 10 also. And then you have Jason Tatum, who's around that same mark. Maybe, I would say closer to 9, 10. Right? Those are your All-NBA first team in 2025. So when we look at Tim Duncan, he came in 99. Kevin Garnett, he was a little bit older, came in, I think, I want to say 95, but he's still in at 10 years. I think Shaq is 10 or 11. Kobe came in at 96. Tracy McGrady, He had just came in, I want to say 99, 98. I think came in 98 season. So I'm just saying the average, on average, the top 5 players on the 2003 team are much younger than the 25 team. They're just younger. And yet, you're not trying to tell me that top 5 in 25 is better than the top 5 in 2003. So who's better than Tim Duncan at the 4 position? Well, I don't think it's Giannis. Giannis don't have that all-around skills like that. I don't think Giannis is better than Kevin Garnett. No. In the other 4 position, I guess they're trying to put Tatum. Guess what? He's not better than Tim Duncan or Kevin Garnett. The center position, Joker is not going to be able to handle Shaq. He's going to get used and abused, okay? I'm not going to try to say that, Joker can't pull him out, whatever. But Shaq would abuse him for 40 points a night. Kobe Bryant against who? SGA? It's not going to happen. Donovan Mitchell is not going to happen. They're not going to be able, no, they're not better than Kobe. Tracy McGrady at this point in 2003? No. Donovan Mitchell or SGA ain't on that level, folks. Remember, too, not only are these guys great scorers, great rebounders, but guess what? They're great defenders, as we're going to see on top of that. And it was a way more defensive era. That was a dead ball era. So let's go to the second team. It gets deeper. You got Dirk Nowitzki, God, in his prime. You got Chris Webber, basically in his prime. Ben Wallace, a prime Ben Wallace, folks. A prime Ben Wallace, right? And then you have Allen Iverson, a prime Allen Iverson, and a prime Jason Kidd. All this is on the second team. Okay? All this is on the second team. Now, the second team for 25, Jalen Brunson, nice. You got Steph Curry, okay. You have, who is this? Anthony Edwards, okay. LeBron James, and Evan Mobley. Okay, it sounds good, it looks good, but Dirk Nowitzki at forward? Who's playing forward over here? They don't even have a forward on here. I guess it would be LeBron James. So, a 40-year-old LeBron James versus a prime Dirk Nowitzki? No! Chris Webber, a prime Chris Webber against an Evan Mobley? No! And that's it. They don't really have a center on here. So nobody's going to be able to deal with Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace is in his prime. Allen Iverson in his prime? No, not Anthony Edwards, not Jalen Brunson. No. And then you got Jason Kidd in his prime too. No. This is who Michael Jordan was going up against. I'm not trying to say these players on the second team are trash or anything like that. But look, Jalen Brunson, he's nice. I like Jalen Brunson. Get him some help. But no, it ain't the same as Allen Iverson or Jason Kidd when Michael Jordan now is 40 years old. Same thing with Steph Curry, all-time great, but he's not in his prime. LeBron James ain't going against a prime Jalen Brunson or a prime Steph Curry. No. There's no dude like Ben Wallace even on here on the second team. And, like I said, Anthony Edwards, no. Even though he's young, he don't compare to Jason Kidd or Allen Iverson. These are prime players. These were the guys that Michael Jordan left the keys to. This was the NBA back then, folks. When people wanted to watch the All-Star game, they wanted to watch these guys go to war and battle. Okay? And it gets crazier. Check this out. The same year, right? 2003, when Michael Jordan was, 39-40, and LeBron James was 39-40 in 24-25. We're going to look at all NBA defensive teams. First team and second team. Right? So let's go to 25. The first team. Dyson Daniels. For Atlanta. Lou Dort. For OKC. Draymond Green. For the Warriors. Now, I'm not trying to say these are bad defenders. Evan Mobley for the Cavaliers. Amen Thompson. That rounds out your top best 5 guys in the league in 24-25 as far as defense. You want to know who was the top 5 defenders in Michael Jordan when he was the 2002, 2003? Doug Christie, Sacramento Kings. Kobe Bryant, Lakers. Kevin Garnett, Minnesota. Ben Wallace, Detroit. And then we got Tim Duncan, the Spurs. What? Whoa. Whoa. That's like all-time great right there, folks. All-time great defenders. That ain't even going to be the kicker. Wait until we get to the kicker, folks. Wait until we get to the kicker. So the second team. You might know the kicker already. So the second team, you got, I don't know how to say this guy's name. Tumani Kamara or something like that. Plays for Portland. Rudy Gobert for Minnesota. Jaren Jackson Jr. for the Grizzlies. And then you got Jalen Williams for OKC. And Zubac for the Clippers. Okay. Where's the superstars? Where's the superstars? Where's the all-time great defenders on that first team or second team? Only guy I can see is maybe Draymond Green. And some people will say, no, Draymond Green's not an all-time great defender. And, you know, I guess you can say that, but you can't really say that because he's always on the damn defensive team. So you can't say he's not. You got, like, I think he's got a steals title. He's got the defensive player of the year. He's always on the defensive team. So he's just one of the guys in the league that plays the defense consistently. So the second team for the 03, Ron Artest for the Pacers, Bruce Bowen for the Spurs, Shaquille O'Neal for the Lakers, Eric Snow for Philly, and Jason Kidd for the Nets. Wow. That's insane. That's insane. I don't think anybody in their right mind would take that first team or second team in 2024, 2025 over the 03 team. Wow. Insane. The only guy that I see in 2003, to me, that's not a great defender or all-time great defender. Well, Eric Snow. I think Eric Snow only made one damn defensive team. If I ain't mistaken. Yeah, he only made. Nevertheless, here's the kicker. Here's the kicker, folks. When we look at the All-NBA 2003, how many players from the All-NBA first team or second team is on the All-NBA defensive first and second team? So let's count it up. So, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Garnett, who is it? Yeah, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Garnett, Ben Wallace, Tim Duncan, Shaquille O'Neal, and Jason Kidd are all on the NBA defensive team. Right? They're all on the NBA defensive team on the All-NBA team. Wow. What about 24-25? Well, that would be one guy. One guy made All-NBA in All-NBA defensive in 24-25. Guess who that guy is? Evan Mobley. That's right, Evan Mobley. Well, let's keep it a buck. You want to extend it and really look at it? We'll go, because I don't have it. I don't have it on me right now. But we'll punch it up right here. All NBA. We'll look up All NBA right now. Of course, you want to play games right now. We'll look up All NBA right now for last year or this year, 25. We'll look it up right now. We're just gonna look up the 13 and see who was on the third. Like I said, 13 don't really matter to me. That's, you know, I just really wanted to see the top 5 players. Who was the best 5 players? So on the 13, you had Cade Cunningham, Tyrese Halliburton, James Harden, Karl Anthony Towns, and you had Jaden Williams. So let's see who made, out of those guys. Well, no, none of those guys made All NBA defensive. We just went over it. None of those guys made All NBA defensive. So we ain't even got to really look at that. We got to go to see if they made it, even the first or second team. Okay, let's go to 2003 and see the third team. See if any of those guys made it from the third team. So the third team will be Jamal Mashburn. Oh, goodness God. Paul Pierce, Jermaine O'Neal, Stephon Marbury, and Steve Nash. Nope, none of those guys made the none of them made it. None of them made the defensive team. But goodness gracious, those names, Paul Pierce, Jamal Mashburn, and Stephon Marbury, and Steve Nash. Wow. Man, that thing was stacked. Versus the third team, I just shouted out for 2025. I mean, this is, really? What about Michael Jordan's first year when he came back? So, this is what he was dealing with. Who made the All-NBA, right? Some of the same names, right? In 2002, Tim Duncan, Tracy McGrady, Shaq, Kobe, and Jason Kidd. I think those are basically the same names. No, I think Kevin Garnett was on the first team. So on the second team, it was Kevin Garnett, Chris Webber, Dirk Nowitzki, Allen Iverson, Gary Payton on the second team. And the third team was basically the same. Ben Wallace, he's on the third team this time. And Dikembe Mutombo is on the third team. So it's Jermaine O'Neal, Ben Wallace, Dikembe Mutombo, Steve Nash, and Paul Pierce. Right? That's what Michael Jordan was dealing with. We don't. That's what Michael Jordan was dealing with. Okay. What about for the 2024 season for LeBron James? Because we were looking at 25 for LeBron James. So when he made third team, it's the same characters that was on the first team in 25. Luka's on it. Giannis, Luka, SGA, Joker, and Jason Tatum. Second team, Jaylen Brown, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Anthony Edwards, and Kawhi Leonard all on the second team. Third team, Devin Booker, Steph Curry, who is it? Tyrese Halliburton, LeBron James, Sabonis. So, what about all NBA defensive for those years? Which like I said, it really don't even matter. For the 2002, let me see. So last year, on the first team, it was Bam Adebayo, and it was Anthony Davis, Rudy Gobert, Herb Jones, Victor Wembanyama. See, Victor Wembanyama didn't even make an All-NBA last year. Or this year, my fault. On the second team, Alex Caruso, Drew Holiday, Jaden McDaniels, Jalen Suggs, and Derek White. Okay, that was a defensive team. Okay, I don't see none of those guys even on All-NBA. Correct me if I'm wrong. None of those guys were on All-NBA. I think Rudy Gobert might have been on there. And I think, was Anthony Davis? Did I say? Yeah, Anthony Davis was definitely on there. So let's go to 2002 All-NBA defensive team. That would be Jason Kidd, Gary Payton. Who's this? Kevin Garnett. So it's a lot of the same names that was on the All-NBA. Ben Wallace, Tim Duncan. So these guys on the first team were on All-NBA. Whether it was, first, second, or third. And then the second team was Kobe Bryant. Kind of surprising. Let's see who got beat out. He got beat out by Jason Kidd and Gary Payton. It was Kobe Bryant, Bruce Bowen, Doug Christie, Dikembe Mutombo, and Cliff Robinson. So again, 5, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 7 guys on the All-NBA defensive team from the first and the second. Hold on. So that's 5. Goodness, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 guys who was on the All-NBA 2002 team was on the All-NBA defensive teams. That's nuts. That's nuts. And I want to say, I think I counted 2 that was on the All-NBA 24. All-NBA team was on the All-NBA defensive team. Only 2. And then when we go back and look at the original one that we was looking at, All-NBA defensive, the one on 2003 and 25. So 2003, All-NBA players that was on between the first and the second. Like I said, we looked at the third team, but I forget. But I don't think they were on All-NBA. The third team wasn't. So the 2003 All-NBA selections. So Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Shaq, Kobe, Ben Wallace, and Jason Kidd. I want to say that 7 of those guys were on all defensive team. So they made an All-NBA in All-NBA defensive. Goodness God. So hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I think 6. If I'm mistaken. 6 of them. If I ain't mistaken, 6 of them that was on All NBA also made an All NBA defensive. It's just crazy. And you had one in 2025. One, and that was Evan Mobley. In 2002 versus 2024, it was basically the same. I think you had one more though. I think Rudy Gobert, if I ain't mistaken, made All NBA. I think it was 13. And he made a defensive team. And it was Anthony Davis. Right? So yeah, man, all this is just nuts. It don't make no kind of sense that, these guys today, they don't have to play any damn defense. The superstars. They don't have to be two-way players. And like I said, the thing about it is, like I always said in the past, well, who beat them out? Who beat them out? You always want to say, well, how come they didn't make it? Well, let me see who beat them out. And then you go look to see who beat them out, and you're like, oh, these ain't no all-time great players. No, Rudy Gobert ain't on here, man. It was Anthony Davis. Let me see. Yeah, Rudy Gobert ain't on All NBA in 24. So we're looking at, again, one guy that made All NBA defensive from the All NBA team, that made All NBA and All NBA defensive. Let me see. I want to see, am I looking at this wrong? Maybe it was Kawhi. Maybe it was Kawhi that made it last year. Let me see. Nope. Oh, hold on, I'm looking at the wrong one. Nope. Kawhi didn't make All NBA defensive. Nope. He didn't make it in 24. So it's Anthony Davis. So it was basically Anthony Davis that made All NBA and All NBA defensive last year. So my point is proven, guys. You can look this up for yourself. This is a big thing. I want to say since the Curry era took over, and I'm not trying to blame Curry, but this is what it's been, a 3-point contest. Everybody thinks they're Steph Curry. You know what I'm saying? You know what it reminds me of? Everybody thought they was Drake, right? This is what made me hate hip hop. I grew up on hip hop, rap, whatever. When I was growing up, Salt and Pepper had their own style. Heavy D had its own style. African Bambaataa had his own style. Luke had their own style. Tupac had his own style. Nas had his own style. Tupac's style was psycho because I think he's the best rapper of all time because he had 20 different styles. That's the problem with Tupac. He didn't have a style. He could rap on any level. He could do any style, which made him the best of all time. All these other rappers just had a style. Tupac had many styles. But everybody had their own style. LL Cool had their own style. Kumo D had his own style. Outkast had their own style. Missy Elliott had their own style. Nelly had his own style. Eminem had his own. If you copy somebody else's style and you sounded like them, that was it. That was it. Your career was over. Matter of fact, they wouldn't even put it out. They wouldn't even waste their time. And that's what it became with Drake. That's why I stopped listening to hip hop. And I called all these rappers. I never liked Drake. He's a for real. He's a phony. He's a rich boy from Canada, lived in rich neighborhoods, the Rossi High, all this stuff. But the fact is, when Drake came out, Drake didn't copy nobody's style. Drake had his own style, right? I didn't like it, but he had his own style. He did his own thing, and he wants you to sing along with him and hold his hand and cuddle teddy bears and all that stuff. Whatever. That was his own style. It didn't work when he first came out in the early 2000s. He got rejected. Then Wayne backed him, and he got accepted. And he really didn't blow up over everybody else until the 210s. So he took that style into the 210s because he came out there, maybe later in the 2000s, as far as, him putting out his own stuff. Going into the 210s, everything just changed, period. So the fact was, Drake had his own style, okay? But the thing was, once we got into the 210s, all these silly Negroes start copying Drake. They wanted to be, Sesame Street sing-along dudes. But to make it even worse, guess what? Guess what they did? they start sounding like idiots. So they try to act like they weren't copying Drake's style, but they really was, right? So they started singing, but while they were singing, they act like they was hard. You know what I'm saying? So they started this mumbling rap, singing stuff. Like, the trap, mumbling rap, or whatever it is. It sounds stupid. And then they took all the harmony out of the goddamn music. So now you can't even vibe to it. It's just a tick, 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 tick. We always had, since the mid-90s, we always had, R&B sound in hip-hop. That's what blew hip-hop up and kicked rock and roll off the damn map. Okay, the R&B sound. They got rid of that. And you don't even recognize black music no more. I don't even call it black music. But as far as the NBA, that was Curry's own style. And all these fools start copying it. And you no longer had no positional game anymore. That's why when you look at the all NBAs, what do you see? In the past, you see forward, center, guard. But if you look at the all NBA recently, all you see is no position. They don't put no position on it because it's to cater to the LeBron James and the LeBron James era, and to get him really on another all NBA team. So when you take out position, it becomes a positionless game, and now you're inviting anybody to come into the game and play when they couldn't play back then. A lot of these guys, I'm serious. When we look at these all NBA teams, a lot of these guys could never be on the all NBA team back in those days. They couldn't, because you had to have positional skills. That's how the NBA always operated in basketball in general. I said, what position you play? Oh, I play forward. I play small forward. I play, center. I play shooting guard. I play, point guard. So at those positions, you had to, possess certain skills at those positions, right? So if you didn't, the guard didn't, or the point guard, he didn't have the same skills as a shooting guard. And the shooting guard didn't have the same skills as a power forward. And the small forward didn't have the same skills as a center. That was the game of basketball. That's what was so exciting about the game of basketball, about the NBA, because you could look at these guys and you were like, oh man, you already knew what kind of skills he had at his position, right? You already knew that. That's what you loved about that certain player. He brought those power forward skills. He brought those point guard skills. He brought those, small forward skills. That's just how it was. Today, they just let all these fools in here just launching up threes. Before, only the best could play in the NBA. That's why a lot of those European players, we won't say just European players. We'll just say a lot of international players couldn't play in the NBA back in the day. Yes. Did we have international players? Yes. But guess what? We had the best international players. We had the Patrick Ewings. We had the Dikembe Mutombos. We had the Akeem Olajuwons. We had the Dominique Wilkins. He's an international player. John Stockton, international player. We had the best international players. Just like in the United States. We had the best United States players, folks. That's just how it was. There's a lot of dudes that never made the NBA in college. Guess what? They were good in college. Or a lot of them that was good in high school, they never made it to a big time team in a college. You only had the best. They don't bring all these international players over here. They're not the best. They're a shell of what we used to have when you look at some of these names. Those guys on the all defensive in the all NBA that's just 2003 I'm looking at, guys. 2002, 2003. You can't even wrap your mind around it. How far the game has went down. And those were guys in their prime. Only dude that won in their prime was maybe, who was it? Shaq. He was at, nearing the end of his prime. That's about it. That was it. And the fact is, most of these guys were making defensive teams in All-NBA. And the guys that did make All-NBA defensive team, you could be like, well, let me see who made it. So let me see who stopped them from making All-NBA defensive team. So you go over there and you say, oh, okay, I can see. I can see why they didn't make All-NBA defensive. Not because they didn't try. It's because the competition on the All-NBA defensive team, it was stout. Look at the All-NBA defensive team in 24 and 25. Are you kidding me? These are all-time great defensive players. Stop it. You gotta be kidding me, man. I just, sometimes I don't know what to say to this nonsense. Like I said, we don't have a problem with international players. The problem is we're not getting the best international players. Because let's be honest. Nobody's going to be honest with you you know, as far as their channel, because they want to make money. And this is the problem with YouTube now. Can't nobody really like, matter of fact, I'm not going to bash nobody. I ain't trying to go against nobody for making money. If this is how you make your money, whatever. But the NBA is finished, man. They're just getting all these players, these international players. And to me, these guys ain't making this kind of money. They're not. You don't have these type of players no more. Nobody watches the game. It's at an all-time rating low. They're lying to your face. As far as I'm concerned, that's what I believe. You believe what you want to believe. Like I said, these guys got a podcast and go get a job after they retire like you and me. There's no way they're making 60, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, all this money, these so-called contracts like we've been told. Now, I'm not saying they don't make millions. I'm not trying to say that. Yes, they make millions, but I don't believe the exact contract that they're talking about. There's nothing to warrant them deserving that kind of money. Not their play, and clearly not the ratings. I'm just trying to tell you, it is what it is. But the whole thing was, this is what Michael Jordan was facing at 39, 40 years old. 38, 39, 39, 40 years old. The 2 years he was in the league playing basically for fun. For the love of the game. Versus LeBron James still trying to catch all-time greats and playing against lesser competition. And to me, it's the weakest competition of all time. It just keeps getting weaker. He's playing against a whole bunch of offensive guys who don't play defense. And then the guys who play defense in this league, they're not all-time great defenders. They might be in some sense, but there's levels to it. I wouldn't say, you know, these guys now are, to me, in the top 75. Hell, they should have a top 50, top 25 all-time great defender, you know, like category 2. Seriously. Not just a top 75, top 25, top 50. They should have it separated with defense too. And then, in a way, there is a lot of, you know, great defenders from back in the day that's in that top 75 or in the Hall of Fame. I just don't. It's a lot of them. It's a lot of guys that play great defense that are in the Hall of Fame. But when you look at these all-time great defenders, they're just not going to be in the Hall of Fame. Rudy Gobert is maybe the exception, and Draymond Green. I would say Draymond Green deserves to be in the Hall of Fame more than Rudy Gobert. Way more than Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert never even averaged 3 blocks a game. That's heartbreaking just to even, and he's got like 4 defensive players a year. I mean, like, what did you defend? You got to be joking. So yeah, that's why I was talking about the whole Drake thing, whatever. Nobody has their own style. All the style of play is the same now. They done ruined it. These ain't two-way players. You don't have no Anthony Davis and Giannis. Tell me the other two-way players. Maybe Kawhi. I mean, Kawhi's days is dimming down, man. I mean, you can be a two-way player. You ain't even fucking playing. But yeah, all the rest of those guys, but besides Evan Mobley, that was the only guy in, what did we go over? 2 different seasons? Evan Mobley is the only one. And I only think he was on All NBA in 2024, if I'm mistaken. Which is Anthony Davis was. Pretty sad, folks.